Help me out and tell me if my request is reasonable. My sister's wedding is coming up 5 weeks from this Saturday. I'm a bridesmaid. When I agreed to be a bridesmaid, I understood I would have to walk down the aisle beside one of the groomsmen, stand beside him in some pictures, and sit at a table with him and the other bridesmaids and groomsmen. No problem. I'm in a relationship and I assumed my girlfriend would be invited to the wedding, or I could bring her as my plus one. Last week, the invitations were sent out, and my girlfriend wasn't invited and I wasn't given a plus one. When I brought this to my sister's attention, she said the groomsman, I'll call him John, is my date. She told me John is single, so it made sense to pair us up and have us be each other's dates. Me not getting a plus one is not about cost savings. My parents are dropping at least $75,000 on the wedding. The expenses skyrocketed during the planning. It's not a destination or out-of-town wedding. My sister wanted a beachfront venue, and the one she books costs over $20,000. The maid of honor, the best man, and all of the other bridesmaids and groomsmen were given a plus one, and so was every other guest. None of the other wedding party members are married either, and the full guest list wasn't kept to spouses only. This came out of the blue. A few months ago, I showed my sister a picture of the dress my girlfriend bought for the wedding, and my sister's exact words were, "I can't wait to see her wearing it." She didn't even have the courtesy to tell me I wasn't getting a plus one or my girlfriend wasn't invited. I found out when I got the invitation. I have nothing personal against John, but I've never met the guy, and being that I'm a lesbian, I don't date men. I've been out for 15 years. I took a girl to my prom. My parents and sister have taken me to pride parades in the past. My girlfriend of 3.5 years has been welcomed to family events and holidays with no negativity. Everyone knows I'm gay and it's never been a problem, but now I feel like it is. My sister complained to my parents about my request, and they sat me down and said, while they are fronting the money, they aren't involved in the planning, and my sister can do as she pleases, and I was reminded it is her day and not mine, and demanding changes to the guest list is self-centered. I'm honestly shocked this happened. Part of me just wants to say screw it and not go, but I'm a bridesmaid and finding a replacement in under 6 weeks would be difficult, and as angry as I am with my sister and parents, I don't want to disrupt the wedding. The guilt is adding to my confusion. I feel like it's homophobia no matter what my sister and parents say to that. Was it wrong of me to ask my sister to add an extra spot on their guest list? Now the top comments. Not the a-hole, this is 100% homophobia. There is someone on your future brother-in-law's guest list who is the reason this is happening. When your sister allows it, she's participating and saying homophobia is okay, regardless of how many pride parades she goes to or how she treats you the rest of the year. Accepting and loving family members don't push their people back into the closet. Ever. Your parents are wrong too. There's plenty of times you should stay out of your adult children's decisions. This isn't one of them. If one of my kids did this to their sibling, I would A. not pay for the wedding, B. not go to the wedding. If one of my kids tried bringing that discrimination into the family cycle, I'd draw the circle with them standing outside of it. It got me effed up if they think the one guaranteed safe place my kid has in the world is getting contaminated. Not the a-hole. A date is a potential romantic partner. You may be escorted by a groomsman during the ceremony, and it has no romantic implications. But that does not make him your date. If your sister was enforcing a rule that only spouses/engaged partners got a plus one, that would be one thing, and I'd probably say, not the a-hole. But deliberately excluding just your girlfriend appears to be homophobic on its face. My inclination is to give people the benefit of the doubt, so I'd go to your sister and explain that a groomsman is not a potential romantic partner. Therefore, he could not possibly be your date. Given that she knows that you are gay and in a relationship, it is disrespectful for her to attempt to set you up with a potential romantic partner, so you do not want to discuss it again. Now that that's out of the way, you want to discuss the plus one situation. It's her wedding, she can invite who she pleases, but she does owe you an explanation for why so-and-so is allowed to bring her boyfriend when you are not allowed to bring your girlfriend. Because right now, it appears that the only difference is the gender of the partners. And then listen, maybe there is some genuine non-a-hole reason. If not, you should feel no qualms about dropping out. I've been mostly estranged from my father since I was 15. I've only ever maintained a relationship with my grandmother. The estrangement was due to my mom, him, and me. I don't blame him entirely. When I was 23, I found out that my father had given my grandmother's home to my stepbrother. My father had given it under the assumption that my grandmother would give it to him once she passed away, which she'd promised to do several times. My stepbrother was older, married and had a child, and apparently needed a home. I have nothing against him as a person, but I was feeling bitter about it and basically griped to my grandmother how my father had sidelined me again. After I vented, I made myself forget about the house. My grandmother passed away earlier this year and, to everyone's surprise, had given the house to me instead. It was obviously a very awkward situation. It was made even more awkward when I found out that my stepbrother and his wife had completely got renovated most of the house by putting in nearly $90,000 of their own money. My father called me and begged me to let him buy the house for around $150K, so my stepbrother wouldn't have to pay for his mistakes. Here is where I think I'm the a-hole. Honestly, I don't think I'll ever be able to own a house otherwise. So I told my father I will be keeping the house, and I gave notice to my stepbrother to move out. I've since moved into the house, and while I'm slightly guilty about enjoying a renovated house that I didn't pay for, I can't help but think this whole mess would have been avoided if my father had waited to receive the house before giving it away. I've since had a conversation with my father about why my grandmother might have done what she did, because of me venting to her, and he's upset. Am I the a-hole? Now the top comments. Everyone sucks here except the stepbrother. Here's the thing, your grandmother promised to give your father the house. Your father, acting on good faith on that promise, tried to help out his son. His son, acting on good faith on that promise, put money into that house. A lot of money. $90K is more than a lot of people make in a year. Legally, the house is yours. Morally, you're the a-hole because you didn't take into account your stepbrother's contributions to the house and just turned his family out. Your stepbrother did nothing wrong here and ended up losing a house he put a ton of money and effort into. Your father even offered to buy the house from you to protect your stepbrother's family, and you refused knowing an innocent family was going to be harmed. You basically hurt your stepbrother because you were mad at your father. You complained to your grandmother because you were mad at your father. You didn't even want the house. You just set all this in motion out of spite. Your grandmother sucks for promising your father something and not delivering knowing the renovation situation. Your father sucks for not letting the ownership in writing before encouraging the renovation. Not the a-hole. OP has no moral obligation to cover someone else's promise they did not have the power to give, nor compensate stepbrother for failing to get adequate information before investing such a large sum. OP, you didn't make your grandma change her will. You mentioned this once. It's grandma's house. She gets to do what she wants with it. Full stop. She could have donated it to a charity or a random from the street, and they would have given exactly 0 Fs about renovations done by a non-owner under false pretenses. OP says dad got $100K from grandmother as well, so he can pay back his stepson as restitution for promising something that wasn't his. Okay, so this happened last night, while me, 23 male, and my family were visiting my brother's 30 male, girlfriend's 30 female, house for the first time. We were all sitting at the dinner table, and I remembered when my brother's girlfriend, who's a widow, saying that she keeps an urn of her late husband's ashes in the house. Conversation led from one thing to another. Then I looked at my brother and asked him quietly if he was comfortable with having his girlfriend's late husband's urn in the house. He gave me a long stare, so I figured the answer was yes, but maybe he couldn't tell his girlfriend about it, fearing she'd misunderstand perhaps. So I brought it up with her and told her it was quite weird to have her late husband's urn in the house. She looked at me and was apparently caught off guard by what I said. She said that she didn't think so and that it wasn't like the urn was on display. Also said that this is her late husband's house and where the urn should be. I told her it felt weird, especially since she just had my brother move in with her and he must be feeling uncomfortable with the idea. His girlfriend looked upset and got quiet. My brother shouted, "None of your goddamn business. Shut your mouth, Elijah. Jesus." I responded with, personally, I wouldn't be cool with my girl keeping an urn of her ex within close proximity. At best, it would make me feel uncomfortable. At worst, it would make me feel creeped out. His girlfriend then replied by saying that I have no business dating a widow, then I shrugged. She excused herself to the kitchen and stayed there. My brother went off on me, calling me an obnoxious a-hole for making dinner awkward and upsetting his girlfriend. I told him I was just giving my opinion, but he lashed out more. My parents and I left and they told me my brother's girlfriend was being hypersensitive. But I too went too far and upset my brother and probably sparked an argument between them, and I should reach to apologize, but I'm not sure. Now the top comments. You're the a-hole. Newsflash, dude, you are not always entitled to your opinion. This is none of your business whatsoever. Think about this whenever you open your mouth to speak. Number 1, is what you're about to say helpful? Number 2, is what you're about to say necessary? Number 3, is what you're about to say kind? If the answer to all or even 2 of these questions is no, then keep your mouth shut. This incident, the answer to all 3 is a definite no. You're the a-hole for referring to the husband as an ex, as well as for being rude and insulting. Just because he is dead does not make him an ex. He is still a treasured part of her life. Let me put it to you this way. If your mother died when you were a child and a lovely person who you love just as much adopted you, would your mom be your ex-mom? Would you want to get rid of everything to do with your mom now that you love your adoptive parent? Or would you expect your adoptive parent to let you love both your deceased and them? It is the same. You only find it weird because A, you have a childish idea of ashes being creepy, and B, I suspect you think your brother would feel weird because he's competing with the deceased husband when in reality there is no competition. Grow up. Update. Guys, please, one thing you should know is that I had no intentions of being hurtful. I do not hate my brother's girlfriend. In fact, we get along pretty well, but I just wanted to add that I had no malicious intent here. I'm not the type of guy to go out their way to act maliciously, but I feel kind of guilty for how the situation played out. My parents are the ones who said she was being hypersensitive, not me. And yes, I overheard my brother venting about the urn when he first moved in, just so you know. I, 38 female, have a 16-year-old daughter. About 7 years ago, her dad and I divorced because he found out he was gay. Him being the only breadwinner, and a high earner at that, and me being a housewife, he preferred to let us live in our house, a big one in a gated community, and continued paying all our expenses and giving me spending money to maintain my lifestyle. 2 years later, I met my current husband. A year later, we married and he moved in with me and my daughter. Him and my ex are great friends, especially since my ex is still very much a part of my life. Also, as a wedding gift, he gave me his half of the house. Now I own it in full. My husband has a daughter with his ex. They have shared custody and she lives with us half the time. The problem is that my ex pays for our daughter to go to a really expensive private school, buys her expensive gifts, and for her birthday he bought her a $60,000 car. My husband can't afford the same for his daughter. My daughter and her stepsister do not have the best relationship, mainly because my husband's ex hoped that they would be getting back together, and keeps poisoning her daughter. My daughter used to share her stuff until her stepsister started ruining them on purpose. That was when my husband made a rule that they can't borrow from each other. I stay out of it since she refuses to see me as a parent and I won't force her. My husband has a good job, but nothing as close as to what my ex earns. And since we both decided that the house is enough help from my ex, our income is just what he earns, which in my opinion is more than enough. Now, my stepdaughter's 16th birthday is coming up. She asked for the same car that my ex gave my daughter. We refused, of course, and said we would buy her a car that fits our budget. She threw a tantrum and threatened my husband that she would never talk with him again if he didn't get her the same car. He is wavering, but I refuse. $60,000+ is just under what he makes a year. It will drown us in debt. We are still paying off his student loans and some medical debt he has. But on the other hand, he loves his daughter a lot, and I feel partially responsible since she wouldn't have asked for it if my daughter didn't get the car for her birthday. So, am I the a-hole? Now the top comments. Not the a-hole, you were offering your stepdaughter a car, just not the same one as her stepsister. You're not deciding that's to be mean. Getting her the same car would send you into debt. 16 is old enough to learn that not everyone has the same privileges in life, and you can't be jealous of or nasty towards others because they have something you don't. She's also old enough to learn she isn't entitled to a car, and beggars shouldn't be choosy. It's unfortunate that her bio parents have a different financial scenario than you and your ex, and that their divorce didn't end as amicably. But an expensive car is not going to fix this situation and will likely only lead to more demands. Everyone sucks here, getting a lot of twisted scenes of fairness from a lot of the replies here. To say to SD, that was a gift from her dad. Why don't you ask your mom for help buying a car? while fully knowing the mother wouldn't/couldn't match up to that will only appear to pit her against her mother, especially from a child's perspective. Money is the root of all evil, and it is going to tear your family apart unless you do something. The gifts your ex-husband gives your daughter are completely outrageous, and even if she doesn't act spoiled, it is obviously causing you a lot of problems. You are raising one poor child and one rich child. Relatively speaking, obviously generously buying SD a car, so not poor in the grand scheme of things, but this is how we'll see it. In the same household. I can't imagine how bad it would be for SD's self-esteem for everybody who is her equal in every way but one to receive so much more favor through no personal effort. To the people saying SD should hurry and learn the harsh lesson that life just isn't fair, I'd say you are being cruel. Her life has been upended through no fault of her own, and now she has to watch the golden child be set up for life. Many people go to the grave believing that the harder you work, the better your prospects, mostly because it can be too bleak to consider otherwise. And this child has this harsh reality rubbed in her face every single day. It's no wonder SD is acting out. Hell, your daughter seems like the highest earner in the family. No wonder their dynamic is ruined. OP, I don't notice any mention of discussing your ex having any custody at all. While I'm sure you think this current deal works out for you while you are wanting for nothing, it really doesn't seem sustainable to me. Perhaps your daughter would live with your ex until she's old enough to move out, if he insists on buying her as much as he does. His showering of you both with money seems selfish if you ask me. A charge to resolve himself of responsibility. As you mentioned in your comments, OP, it might as well be loose change to him, as a percentage of his income. Obviously, you don't buy SD the $60K car because you can't afford it. Nobody should be entitled to a gifted $60K car as their first car, full stop. I agree with others that SD needs to learn that she can't have everything she wants, but she'll never learn that while someone right under her nose is doing exactly that. SD will wake up every morning, look in the driveway, and know that she will always be the lesser. You are setting up your SD for failure here, and money, especially in these amounts and at their ages, is much too large a force on their lives to be navigated alone.